So, Nick, UFC Vegas 48 just concluded. We were supposed to have a main event between Rafael dos Anjos and Rafael Fiziev, which I was really looking forward to. We got to hold off a little bit on that one, but some of the fights on this card, particularly the main and the co-main, really delivered. How about Jamahal Hill doing the damn thing, knocking Johnny Walker's spark out?
Yeah, stepping up into the main event slot, that's no easy task. It did feel like a bit of a blow when we lost the main event to this card, but I do think that Rafael Fiziev and RDA deserve a spot in that next pay-per-view. So I'm excited to see that one. I was a little bummed to see it get pushed down the road, but still very excited for it. And I think there was a lot of fun fights, a lot of entertaining finishes, and all kinds of really good performances last night that made for a pretty interesting fight night that felt a little bit lighter than usual. It was good. Johnny Walker looked really good out there in the main event, but you look good until you don't look good against Jamahal Hill. So I don't know. This guy's real. The power is certainly real because it didn't even look like one of the cleanest shots that we've seen in the UFC by any means, but it's got some power on it.
Yeah, Jamahal Hill was literally doing everything wrong until he won that fight by knockout. And I was watching it, and I remember thinking to myself and even saying out loud, he's not cutting off the cage appropriately. When the certain times when he had backed Johnny Walker up, he was kind of chasing and not properly blocking him off and kind of keeping him with his back against the cage. I thought Johnny Walker landed some really good exchanges. Some of those flurries I felt like Jamahal Hill was out of place on. I felt like he was reaching for shots at times. And just as I'm starting to get critical of his performance, he sparks Johnny Walker with just an incredible straight down the pipe. I mean, the power with Jamahal Hill is real. He's a diamond in the rough as far as I'm concerned because he does have a lot of things technically to work on if he's going to really climb the 205 ranks and be a potential title threat in that division. But my God, the power is real, and that's the one thing that you can't teach.
Yeah, and when you get to the UFC and you still have a lot to improve on as far as aspects of the fight game, but you have this star power and you seem to be an entertainer and you wind up in a main event spot when only you're 10 or 12 fights into your UFC or into your fight career. It can be difficult to try to navigate learning as a student while still very much being now a main eventer. But it seems like he's going to be able to do that. He's got a lot to learn, but he's got the power. That's like an ultimate finisher in his fights, and I think he's going to continue to use that power as he learns to develop his game in MMA. He's going to become more of a threat. If he can prevent takedowns and keep the fight standing, he's got more than a puncher's chance because he knows how to deliver those shots and he knows how to land them. He knows when to throw them. And Johnny Walker, you don't really want to give any sort of like rub against Johnny Walker because he looked really good. I thought his kicks looked strong. It looked like he was landing all kinds of things. Just in the short couple of minutes we saw him fight, he put a big welt on Jamahal Hill's arm. I mean, they pointed it out in the post-fight speech with Paul Felder. He's like, look at your arm. And it looked like there was another elbow or even like another bicep right there. So he was clearly landing some pretty powerful kicks. And I think it's very similar to like Derek Lewis's last performance. Johnny Walker looked like he was in one of the best forms that we've seen him in. He said he sparred a lot leading up to this fight. He trained really hard. Everything felt like it was going right, and it looked like it was going that right direction. But when you're talking about 205, even 185, and of course heavyweight, you're talking about guys with one punch KO power. Jamahal Hill certainly has it, and Johnny Walker zigged when he should have zagged, but it made for a really fun fight.
Yeah, and I don't think Johnny should get discouraged. And he obviously lives in Ireland now. He's training at SBG under John Kavanagh, and he's not had a lot of success with regards to results. But I have seen improvements in his game.
For sure.
And I mean, he just got caught last night by Jamahal Hill. He opens himself up a little bit too much. He gets a little too crazy with the combos. It's very entertaining, but it does lead him to get counter-struck, which he did last night. But I think all in all, Johnny Walker is still a young guy. He's still young in the sport. He's on the right track. He's 6'6", 206 pounds. I mean, he's got the body for it. Yeah. He definitely is athletic enough. And I think just with some corrections, he can be in the top 10 again at some point.
Yeah, and before we move to the co-main event, I think these two are in the running for best walkouts in the UFC. I mean, you got Johnny Walker, who we know is a bit of a wild man, was a former stripper. He's given the guy that's doing the Vaseline on his face and the cup check and everything, giving him a bit of a personal dance, which was pretty funny. Yeah. It's very entertaining to watch. But Jamahal Hill gave him a good run for his money. He was rapping all the lyrics to the song he walked out to. He was having fun. He was headbanging, all that stuff. So it was fun. you got two characters. They're both on the rise, and I think that Jamahal Hill's stock definitely went up, but I don't think Johnny Walker's stock went down too much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then moving into the main event, the younger Daukaus brother, Kyle Daukaus, getting a beautiful submission victory literally in the last second of the first round, win by Darce choke. It didn't exactly look like a textbook Darce choke to me, but that's what they're calling it. And so now we'll go ahead and call it that. And he said, look, I've got more Darce chokes than Tony Ferguson. You can go ahead and call me the Darce Knight. I thought that was pretty cool. And I think both brothers Daukaus, even though they've been kind of back and forth in their UFC careers, and obviously Chris Daukaus just losing to Derek Lewis, I think both of them do show a lot of promise.
Yeah, I really was impressed with that performance, and he looked good on the feet. He was really good at stringing those takedowns together up against the cage. It seemed like his opponent had a lot to deal with from the beginning, and when you got a BJJ black belt who really knows what they're doing in the MMA realm, it could be a very difficult fight because it turns from being an MMA bout to being basically jiu-jitsu, like MMA jiu-jitsu, and it can be very difficult to navigate through that if you're not at the same level as somebody like Daukaus. And I really was blown away when I saw that he got the tap with 1 second left, and it wasn't a arm or a heel or something like that was getting manipulated. It was a Darce choke. I mean, even if he fell asleep, you should fall. If you have the awareness to know that there's less than 10 seconds left, if there's 1 second left, don't tap. Even if you do fall asleep for half a second, just chill. But it must have been a very tight choke. I mean, it didn't look like his arms were all the way together, but I don't know. I'm not going to say that it wasn't a great choke, but I will say that unless it's one of your arms that's about to break or one of your heels your knee's about to explode, I would probably try to hold off on tapping.
Yeah, for sure, especially when you're not close to being asleep. And obviously, as you saw the separation there, his opponent was nowhere near asleep. So basically, in that situation, if you have good awareness of where you are in the round, and I know you shouldn't just be looking up at the clock every second, but your corner should be telling you where you are. Hey, 3 seconds left, 2 seconds left, hold tight. I didn't really hear any of that. Obviously, you can't hear everything from the corners. They're not mic'd up to where we can hear them on TV, but I feel like his corner could have done a little bit of a better job of giving him an idea of where he is in the round. Either way, it was a great win for Kyle Daukaus, and I think that beautiful takedown is what really set it up. And one of the hardest things to get in MMA that a lot of people don't appreciate is a takedown. People are so good at takedown defense now, and really good strikers have learned how to really hurt you with strikes and make you pay every time you try to take them down. So getting a takedown, if that's where you want the fight to be, has become a much harder deal in this era of MMA than it was in generations past. And that was beautiful because what he did is he unloaded a flurry of shots and then kind of dropped his hand. And what's the first thing you want to do as an opponent when somebody scores shots on you is you want to advance and get shots back on them. He knew that was coming. He changed levels as soon as he saw it, got the takedown, and that was the beginning of the end. So I think a lot of promise for Kyle Daukaus. I think we should see a number next to his name, probably in the 13 to 15 range come Tuesday, but I was impressed with his performance overall.
Yeah, I thought it was great. That takedown was perfectly timed, really well executed, and everything that led up the 5 seconds before it and then everything into the takedown was all strategic, all planned out, and it was very, very beautiful.
Most definitely. And now let's talk about some history that was made last night. Jim Miller ties with Cowboy Cerrone now as the most knockout finishes in UFC history. I believe last night was his 39th fight under the UFC banner. I mean, it just doesn't get any tougher, more grizzled and OG than Jim Miller.
Yeah, what a gangster. And he walked out to Iron Man, which is pretty awesome. Yeah. And they were saying that he pretty much is made of iron. And I thought it was kind of funny because his opponent's name, his fight name at least, was Iron. So it was a whole bunch of iron in that fight. But when you've got a guy who's now, 39 fights into the UFC. And
39 years old.
Yeah. And he's fighting somebody who's making their UFC debut. It just goes to show you that there's another level. And when you get to the UFC, it really is the absolute best fighters. The hammers all the way through from your first fight to your last fight on your UFC contract. You're not having an easy night out there unless, of course, you're Mickey Gall getting the CM Punk call. But other than that, you're not getting an easy fight in the UFC. And Jim Miller, I mean, obviously one of the most difficult guys to deal with, one of the most difficult guys to finish, especially when you're just now getting your feet wet into the UFC. I thought it was a good performance from his opponent until obviously Jim Miller started to get his shots off and and really start to land those punches. Textbook perfect, step in hook. It was, really, really, really beautiful stuff right there. Enough power in Jim Miller's shots to put the lights out, and then the finishing touches with the ground and pound was also very impressive.
Yeah, I thought so. And Jim Miller's one of those guys, and this goes back to that conversation of who do you put in the Hall of Fame. There's people like Jim Miller that to have almost 40 fights under the UFC banner and have not been cut by the UFC is almost unheard of. Yeah. There's former champions. Cody Garbrandt, there's people saying that he should be cut from the UFC right now, and he's had nowhere near 40 fights in his entire MMA career, let alone under the UFC banner. So to have the staying power over the decades, obviously Jim Miller's not going to be grabbing a belt anytime soon or ever in his career under the UFC banner. But at the same time, I feel like it's damn near as difficult, if not more, to have a career that spans multiple decades and you have success throughout. Andrei Arlovsky, he did get a belt at some point, but now he's still hanging around beating top prospects. And you got Jim Miller beating top prospects. You got Cowboy, bit of a rough patch, but has beaten many a top prospect in his day. I think these guys deserve at least an honorable mention, if not to just be fully put into the Hall of Fame for their body of work over a long period of time.
You have to put Jim Miller in the Hall of Fame, just like Cowboy has to go in the Hall of Fame. And Arlovsky's one of the guys like them, but he did reach the belt. Oliveira was one of those guys that grinded all the way until he wound up getting to the belt. And he started his UFC career very young. Jim Miller's obviously been in for a really long time, and it looks like he's probably not going to get a title fight, but he's now stringing together a fight win streak. So who knows? There's crazy things that have happened. Glover Teixeira is the champion right now. If in 2021, the beginning of 2021, we would have told you that in 2022 he was going to be the champion, Juliana Pena was going to be the champion, and all the list goes on, we probably would have laughed that off and never expected it to be the case. But crazy things have happened. I don't think Jim Miller's got a title fight happening soon, but I think he always deserves to be on the main card no matter what, and he needs to finish his career in the UFC. They don't need to go, cut him and have him send off to Bellator or anything like that. They need to preserve that guy, let him fight as many times as he wants to, and when it looks like he's starting to deteriorate a little bit, maybe we'll look at calling it a day, but give him good opponents, give him fun fights, give him good slots on those cards, and he's going to keep performing just the way he does.
Definitely. Well, UFC Vegas 48 was not a star-studded event, but there were some very good fights nonetheless.
As always.
Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Let us know what you think about our recap of UFC Vegas 48. Who was your fighter of the night, and what was your performance of the night? Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.
Peace.